Okay, take 13. I've plugged the microphone in this time. Christ, it's warm in here. I'm sweating. They say that 90% of writing is perspiration, 10% inspiration. I spend my life procrastinating over excellent ideas I can only fuck up by physicalizing them into dull words on a processor. But I write in order to process. Alas, I cannot write myself out of situations as they happen. I am not a god after all. I am at least not the god. We can, I think, agree on that. They say that 90% of writing is plagiarism, and the other 10% is figuring out how to mask it. Influences. I'm influenced by birds and butterflies, a shit that took too long or shat too quickly, by music and by silence, by my own discomfort and that of others. I suffer from imposter syndrome and a giant case of narcissism. I've looked at a cloud and seen a duck, but I've never looked at a duck and seen a cloud. I have been punched in the face and immediately thought, this will make a good scene in a play. I like the word bonk, but I've never used it in any of my writing. Until now. I hate the word shit, because it sounds childish and naive, and worse, like shite. Inspirations. I've been variously inspired by conscientious realist Henrik Ibsen, sly surrealist Tom Stoppard, dark satirist Chris Morris, and dickhead enemy of the woke mind virus David Mamet. They say that 90% of writers, of all artists, are pieces of shit, and because I've met many, I'm inclined to agree while desperately clinging to the notion that I'm in the other 10%. I spend my time exploring my conscience, and as a result, my work is generally polemic. I've had good reviews and bad reviews, and most of them were local. One writer thought that I had written a play about him. I hadn't, though now really it can only ever be about that silly little man. One day I'll write a play about it. They say 90% of writing is knowing how to write and not what to write. I've been referred to in external conversations as the playwright, but I've only ever had 3 full-length plays professionally produced. I don't write to be published, I write to deal with the existential quandaries life consistently throws up in my mouth, like a metaphorical thing that's basically a simile or whatever. But then they say 90% of all writing remains unpublished, that 90% of all writing is done in the shitter or the shower, that 90% of writing is unfinished or worse, never started. 10% of writing is joy. Where does that leave the writer? 90% confusion, loss, anguish, terror, boredom, elation, anger, isolation, frustration, bigotry, masturbation, and narrative ennui, nuance, and an overall feeling of why tread where other better creators have strode. My genre is me. I think of poetry as the rich man's kitsch and prose as the poor man's plaything. I can write neither. I love to write myself into corners without deus ex machina to get me out. What would Poirot do? Or Jesus? Lyrics confound me, but I wrote a musical once. It was referred to as ambitious. When I speak, I have a voice but say nothing. When I write, I give articulation to that voice and say something, if only 10% of the time. Write for fun, to learn, to grow, to unleash your vitriol. Write like no one's ever going to read it, not as though your life depends on it. Write about the things you know and learn about the things you don't. They say writing is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. I say put pen to paper and see what happens. And maybe buy a fan if it gets too fucking warm.